Snoop. Once you start looking, it's hard to look away. It's a middle grade novel by Gordon Korman. It's about a boy stuck at home who discovers that things get complicated when he can only use screens to see what's happening around him, and he uses them to snoop on people. Hi, I'm Dan Skinner, and welcome to the Kids Bookshelf. Ahead, we'll explore the book and talk with the author about the inspiration behind it. Gordon Korman is the best-selling author of over 100 novels for young readers, including his hilarious MacDonald Hall series, I Want to Go Home, Slacker, and The Fort, and many more. He joins us to talk about Snoop. Gordon, welcome to the Kids Bookshelf.
Thanks so much for having me.
Well, tell us about this latest novel and what readers can expect here.
Well, Snoop is kind of an adventure mystery comedy, if to throw it in as many genres as I can. So it's about a 12-year-old kid named Carter who actually has a freak collision with his little brother on a ski slope and ends up with two broken legs in exactly the same spot. And he is completely stuck at home, isolated from his school, doing everything virtually. And it really starts with him. The girl he has had a crush on since kindergarten. There's a rumor that she's kind of cozying up to Carter's kind of worst enemy in the grade, but he can't confirm it because he's stuck at home. So he realizes that on the way to school, the pair walk past a public security camera that is accessible for anybody on the internet. And he starts spying on them, snooping on them through that. And he becomes kind of addicted to snooping, not just from that camera, but others around town. Eventually he figures out how to get into, the private cameras at the ice cream shop and the 7-Eleven and the parking lot. And it even gets to the point where his mom has a drone. He mounts a camera on it and starts flying it around town to bump his snooping up to the next level.
So there are a lot of issues already in what you just described, because
Yes.
He's gone beyond just being what's publicly available to those things that, are questionable ethically.
Right. Well, definitely, and legally too. Right. I mean, so I think if there's a moral of the story, it really is that there is this incredible amount of information available to not just kids, but anybody out there, and there are really no guardrails to it. How does anyone sort of navigate this, much less a 12-year-old kid like Carter? And he is not the kid with the greatest willpower in the world anyway. And, he really does get himself into a significant amount of scrapes and trouble, not just with his mom and his classmates, but with the police as well. But in the end, he is the person who has to sort of put a cap on it for himself, right? Like he does reach this moment where, the old phrase, when you find yourself in a hole, stop digging. Like that's really where he ends up.
Well, and it's all not black and white here, because he actually does accomplish some good things as well. He helps a neighbor in distress, and he helps break up the illegal animal ring. So,
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, that's it. That what if regardless of the morality and the legality of the snooping, what if you discover, in this case, it turns out to be a endangered animals kind of smuggling ring. I try not to be black and white in terms of the morality of my stories for kids. Like everything is shades of gray. I mean, Carter is objectively a screen obsessed kind of tech obsessed kind of kid, but at the same time, he very much is a good kid. right? Like you would not finish the book and sort of say, oh, that kid's a juvenile delinquent. I mean, he makes a lot of mistakes. He goes too far in a number of different ways, but he is really the kind of kid you'd like to get to know yourself.
Another thing that I think it also points out is that even though you have all these resources and you have these cameras and you have all this information, that's not the real world. It's not the full picture. So he may think he's, connecting with the real world from his bedroom or wherever, but not really.
Yeah, we all need to learn that sometimes in this world. It's so easy to have this kind of virtual life today, but it might take a little bit more legwork and be a little bit more difficult to have experiences in reality. IRL, as the kids call it, but it's not the same. You're right about that.
Well, this is a middle grade novel, so for what age group is it intended?
I would say sort of upper elementary school and middle school.
There are lots of issues here you've covered, some of them legal and ethical, and just things about privacy and screen addiction, etc. Why did you want to bring all those issues up in this novel?
I am not that much of an issue kind of guy. Like I don't want anyone to sort of finish one of my books and be like, oh, now I know the meaning of life and we're good. Because I sort of feel like, especially for kids, you can get so preachy and so didactic when you approach it that way. So my original inspiration for Snoop was the old Alfred Hitchcock movie Rear Window, right? Which is a photographer laid up with a broken leg, just one, uh, and he takes to snooping out of probably boredom. Now, in his case, he's just looking out his rear window, but that was one of the things that really kind of captured me. Was like, yeah, in 2025, the opportunities for information out there, the opportunities for snooping, are far greater because we have internet, we have cameras, we have drones. It really would be, especially for a kid, but for anybody, once you start looking, the hardest thing to do is to look away.
Kids of that age are often much more savvy about technology than the parents or other adults. I'm curious, as you were putting this story together, what kind of research challenge this posed for you?
I think it was just to make sure that it was even possible, y- you know, um, but just a little bit of looking around and seeing. I live in Long Island, New York, so can I get into the traffic cameras on the LIE and that kind of stuff. I'm not an incredible hacker, so I didn't try to get into the ice cream store. Um, but certainly, a lot of people in real estate live in my town, and it's very, very common to use drones to sort of keep an eye on a building site, just to get like an aerial shot of what's going on there. So I knew that the believability wouldn't be stretched beyond my usual level of stretching, sort of willing suspension of disbelief. But the other bit of research that I did was the endangered species sort of piece of it, which does ultimately end up a very big part of Snoop. And I think one of the things that sort of struck me a little counterintuitively is, I mean, we're all fascinated by endangered species. I mean, we learned that back in COVID when everyone got addicted to watching Tiger King and that kind of stuff. But what I learned is that our fascination with endangered animals actually makes the problem worse, because that's what makes them profitable, right? Like an endangered species ring wouldn't exist if there wasn't a lot of profit to be had in it. So in a way, we're kind of creating our own problem with the nature of our attentions.
I'm talking with Gordon Korman about Snoop, and our conversation will continue. If you're enjoying this discussion, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and click on the bell so you know when I post new interviews. And thank you. Well, you mentioned you're not really an issue guy, but beyond being an engaging read, are there some takeaways for readers here?
Well, I think I mean, I am an issue guy, but I don't want to take too much of a stand. I don't want to be like the screen police for kids. I mean, I think anyone reading the way Carter approaches the world, he is screen obsessed. He does go too far. But at no point is there this kind of Deus ex machina, like someone comes in and is like, you should not do, Carter sort of has to reach that moment for himself. And I think that is what will have the most impact on kids, partly because they don't love being lectured, but also because that's ultimately where they will have to make that decision for themselves.
I'm curious about the conclusion Carter comes to, because I'm assuming he's not going to give up screens, but he has to come to a decision about what's appropriate behavior for him.
Right. Well, I mean, I think he also has the acute problem of being stuck at home. That is a finite thing, right? So I think that in a lot of ways he will change, but it'll be easier for him to change. He'll have to navigate his classroom in real life now. He's going to have to figure out what's going on with Lacey and Maddox and Ethan and all the other kids. He is going to have to continue his relationship with his little brother, which I'm especially proud of just because I'm an only child. So sibling relationships to me were never natural. And I always just sort of was endlessly fascinated by how siblings love each other, feel deep connection, and at the same time just torture each other endlessly. And that was something I had no personal experience with. But I see Carter kind of figuring it out. But at the same time, just knowing the kind of kid he is, he may fix these mistakes only to make the next round of mistakes, when the time comes.
Gordon, there's a question I like to ask writers of fiction, and it's this. If you could spend a day in real life with one of the characters from this book, who would it be and why?
Um, Well, I mean, from a personal standpoint, I would almost go with Maddox Miller and the chairman of the board, just because I love I'm always kind of endlessly fascinated with the idea of sort of people who love to be bad, but they're not really that bad, So I always have more fun with minor characters than my main ones, and I kind of feel that just to get into the mindset of like, what really is this impression you think you're making on the world, but for me, writing the book, I was in Carter's head, right? He's the narrator. It's all through him. So I almost feel like I did spend time with Carter in real life. I could smell the onion room. I could sort of see the screen monitoring the drone as it sort of navigated the downtown streets and found these endangered animals. So I guess I kind of would make a choice other than him just because I feel like I've done it already.
I have a couple questions for you about your process and your career. I understand that you actually published your first book when you were in high school. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so it's a little fluky, but my first book was actually my seventh grade English project. In my middle school, the track and field coach had to teach English, and he really had never taught it before. So when it came to creative writing, he just told us kind of work on whatever you want for the rest of the year. And it was February. So from February to June, we had a 42-minute class period every day to write one story. And I wrote the first draft of my first book. I published it actually with Scholastic because I was the class monitor for Scholastic book orders in school. So I'm thinking I'm practically an employee of these guys already. So I had this really obviously unusual, but at the same time, very sort of kid oriented, school oriented, like origin story for my career. And I think that's one of the reasons why, as I've continued to develop as a kids book writer, is I've always written either school stories or stories where school is a big part of it. It's where you see the main interactions between kids these days. And it all started with that seventh grade project.
And writing for youth has stayed with you all these years. What is
Yes,
it you
yes.
enjoy about writing for this age?
I love this age. That's the one thing that I would say without reservation. When I started writing young, everyone was like, oh, yeah, but when you become an adult, you are definitely going to start writing for adults. And it didn't happen. I'm 61. I'm still waiting for that great American novel to come out. Middle grade, right? That audience of sometimes you'd say sort of tween to young teen. It's really a time in your life where you become in command of your own opinion, right? Before that, yeah, you love the picture books, but mom did those great voices, or dad used to dress up to be a certain character. But when you reach middle grade, it's all you. And you choose what you like, you choose what you don't like. And one of the things I find amazing is that I'll run into people in their 40s and even 50s who'll look at my books and be like, oh, yeah, I read that when I was in fifth grade or whatever. It makes me feel ancient. But I think it speaks to that important moment where you become in command of your own opinion and the fact that those choices stay with you forever.
Well, congratulations on this latest book, Snoop, being out there. What's next for you?
So my next book comes out in January. Actually, it is called Hyper Gifted, and it is the third book in, I guess people call it my gifted series. Ungifted was the first, followed by Super Gifted, and now there will be Hyper Gifted.
The book is Snoop. Once you start looking, it's hard to look away, by Gordon Korman. Gordon, thank you for talking with me today.
Thanks so much for having me.
If you'd like to purchase Snoop, I've placed a link for you in the description below. If you enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe, like, and click on the bell so you know when I post new interviews. Meanwhile, here are 2 more books you might find interesting. Well, thank you for watching this edition of the Kids Bookshelf. I'm Dan Skinner. Until next time, keep sharing the gift of reading.